Welcome back to Burnout Break Room, the podcast that's like a break room, but helpful, where we look at burnout through a realistic lens, talk about ways to take a break from the grind, and spill the tea.
I'm Caitlin Truhella, creativity coach and speaker.
I'm Lyndie Larimore, licensed therapist, certified career coach, and consultant. We're your hosts, and thank you for joining us here in the Burnout Break Room.
This episode is brought to you by Loop Earplugs. As the winner of the Red Dot Award for product design, Loop is globally recognized for its innovation in earwear, promising long-lasting ear protection. Whether they're for focus, fun, or better sleep, you'll find durable quality and premium comfort in every pair. Use our link to get 15% off your next purchase today and live life at your volume. Lean into everything you love that's loud with bold, noise-reducing earwear. Thank you, Loop.
Hi, Caitlin. How you doing?
I am doing fabulous, Lindy. How are you?
I'm good. I have to say, we are in peak fall, peak leaf season here in New England, and it really is wonderful. I got to take a moment today and go for a walk in the woods with a friend, and it really filled my cup. It was really nice.
Ooh,
Yeah,
magical.
absolutely. I'm in the middle of a performance week, so which is just far more busy than I even remember it being. It's so nice to have so many wonderful things in my life, and sometimes they all happen in the same week. So I
Right?
certainly can't complain, but it's like it's impressive how many things can be put into one schedule.
Absolutely. I mean, I mean, not just for the weather point, but yeah, when it rains, it pours.
Mhm.
And I had a similar experience this week and I had a full day of rain earlier in the week, and I swear it just has restored my soul. And also amidst having a very full schedule and a lot of new things put on my plate, very, very exciting thing. So I'm happy about that, not complaining either. But yeah, having that flexibility to take the time to do the things that you need to and appreciate those things in the moment are so very important. And another reason why we're so happy to have Kamina James here with us today, as she talks about the benefits of having the flexibility to, build your work how you want to, whether it's specifically freelance or starting your own small business and living the life you want to. She coaches creatives to start and grow their freelance or small business income so they're not beholden to a 9 to 5 job. She's worked as an actor, a singer, a session musician, a dance teacher, and more. And she and her husband have been making their living as writers since 2017, traveling, buying a home, and starting a family, all while working part time, remotely, and flexible hours. Around parenting her toddler, she does yoga inconsistently, listens to pop culture podcasts daily, and throws last minute cocktail parties. Kamina, welcome. We're so happy to have you here in the break room.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you both.
Wonderful. As this is the Burnout Break Room podcast, I would love to know a little bit more about your burnout story and how it brought you to this place.
Well, I used to have this kind of big burnout story about a burnout event, which was a real turning point in my life. And I will definitely tell that story. But I want to say that more recently, I've come to the realization that I have always perpetuated this kind of ongoing pattern of burnout, this burnout cycle. And for me, I have to actively work to prevent burnout all the time just because of the way that I'm built. And so I
Mm,
wanted to sort of bring that up as well in case it's relevant for people. For someone like me, I'm neurodivergent, I'm a perfectionist, high achiever, I have really variable energy levels, but I'm multi-passionate and I love my life. And so I tend to overcommit when I have high energy and then like crash and burn because I've taken on too many things or because my energy's just unexpectedly gotten lower than I anticipated. And that has happened to me over and over and over again. And so I think, for some of us, we have to recognize at some point that life is not making us burned out. Like we're creating that burnout sometimes. Like if you've burned out 3 or 4 times in 7 years, it's probably you, bestie. Like I say that with a lot of love. Like I've had to recognize it in myself and I see it in so many of my clients. So in my own life and for my clients, I do a lot of burnout prevention now. But like I do have like a big burnout story. So when I was around 26, 27, like 10 years ago, my husband was in this very stressful job that didn't really suit the way he operates at all. We've since found out he had undiagnosed ADHD at the time, which now makes a lot of sense of the situation. And he was working really hard on that. I was doing my master's degree, and we both, for lots of reasons, like personally and emotionally, as well as the pressure of the work and the study, we burned out really badly kind of at the same time. And that was a really pivotal event for us because my husband decided to leave his job. The job that he was in came with a house, so we had to leave our home. And it was this big, like 5 bedroom, like spreading home for just the two of us. And we downsized to a really tiny apartment. We went and lived in the middle of the city, which we'd always wanted to do. And we also cleared our entire calendars. Like we became quite socially withdrawn and we just leaned into like minimalism in every aspect of our lives, including our schedules. And so we had this year of like mental quiet and we really needed the healing. And then out of that came quite a lot of creativity because we're both creative people. He's a writer. Um, and when we'd sort of done some healing, we decided to start a creative business together. And that was sort of our first, it wasn't my first venture into business, but it was our first kind of attempt to go, let's actually try and replace our income with creative work. And that worked out. That happened for us. That was probably 8 years ago or so. And we have both worked part-time hours ever since then. We've both been living and earning unconventionally and just decided we are not ever going to go back to having conventional or full-time employment. So in some ways, Mike, that's a pretty cliched story. You hear a lot of online entrepreneurs being like, I crashed and burned and I transformed my entire life. But I feel like, well, we've been living it for like 10 years now. So I feel like I can tell that story with authority. And so, in terms of like how that's brought me to the work that I'm doing now, I still do creative work. I work mainly as a writer. I also work as an academic. But I've had so many people ask me over the years, like, how do you like, you don't really seem to work that much. How do you do that? And sort of admire our lifestyle, which puts mental health first, because it's really important for us. And so I sort of became really passionate about this, especially after I had my baby a couple of years ago. And then all of my mum friends who had babies the same age started going back to work and putting their kids in daycare when they didn't want to. Like, there's no shade on anyone who does that. But I had mum friends who did not want to do that, but they didn't see an option. And I like just didn't go back to work. I didn't have to because I had a big savings buffer and I had a flexible income that I could do myself. And I just thought, man, I want more people to have access to this. And so I started just mentoring other creative people. And it's sort of evolved into this thing where I coach people to turn their creative work into a flexible business so they don't have to have a 9 to 5 job if they don't want to. I work with a lot of parents and neurodivergent people and chronically unwell people and other people with varied capacity. Yeah, so that's how I got here.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing, Kamina. And let me just take a moment and say for all the people who feel called out for, burning out multiple times, potentially from, our own way of working, I'm figuratively holding your hand right now because I feel it too.
Caitlan, you stole my words. I was just going to be like, I feel too seen right now. Like in this
Mhm.
moment, I'm like, oof, that hurts. That hurts. It's funny because I was just in a coaching session yesterday and I wrote down I'm supposed to finish this sentence. When I'm feeling blank, I tend to blank, and what I really need is blank.
Mm,
And
Mm,
what really called me out was when I'm feeling like energized, I overcommit.
mm,
And because I think when we talk about burnout, we're often talking about when we're not feeling well, when we're tired. But I think to your point, Kamina, we have to actually talk about what are we doing when we're feeling energized that ends up like what checks are we writing that we can't cash later on? So I really appreciate you mentioning that because for myself, if I'm not overperforming during my energetic periods, because I too have ADHD, then I
Mm.
feel lazy.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if that's a word that comes up for you very often. And if so, how do you work with this idea of laziness with, among creators and creatives and turn it into more of a purposeful life?
Yeah, definitely the feeling of laziness comes up when I talk about making things easy. I actually love the word lazy. I use it in a non-pejorative way, like just it's okay to be lazy in terms of don't put too much energy into things that don't need you to put too much energy into them, right? I think like exactly what you said, Lindy, one of the tendencies I've had to overcome is trying to work at 100% of my capacity or to overperform because we think if we're not always performing the way we do on our best day, or we're not always planning and committing to perform at our peak, that we are being lazy. But I mean, first of all, it's not possible to perform at our peak all the time, otherwise it wouldn't be a peak, right? And then second of all, that doesn't allow, if we overschedule ourselves 110%, then when an emergency comes up, or even like a new good opportunity that we want to take on, we haven't left space for it. But third of all, something I say to my clients is like shaming ourselves for making work easy, I think is actually putting too much value on our work, to be quite honest. Like, work is a valuable thing. I love my work and I love to perform excellently at work, but it's not my whole life. And when I say I want my work to be easy, it's because life is not easy and I need capacity to do other things like parent my child and have relationships and take care of people and take care of my home and my body and my mental health. Like that's not lazy. So when I say like have an easy business or an easy income or easy work, I'm not telling you to be lazy in all of life. I'm saying like make your work easy because work should not be the most important thing in your life. It shouldn't be taking up so much space in your life. There are more important things to use that energy on. And then another thing I really want to say about laziness and easy work is that often the hustle, it's actually just ineffective and a bit misguided. It's us fulfilling this need, like this conditioning we have that we must work hard in order to earn money or to be valuable. And so we're so conditioned to do that that we will just make up busy work that isn't actually always helping. It just helps us to feel busy and feel valuable. And it helps us often to avoid the difficult things that we don't actually want to do. Like if you have your own business, it's like promoting your business, getting on Instagram and making videos or emailing clients and saying, hey, would you like to work together again? Those are the things that will actually help you make money, but we don't want to do them. And so instead we spend a lot of time picking out the like color palette for our website. And so like you guys are both looking at me like you feel called out by that. And
So
so,
much, yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's like, first of all, you're just keeping yourself busy, but you're actually not doing things that help. And the second thing is like, I always think your best work should be easy because if it's easy for you, it's a sign that that is like your talent, your zone of genius. And so that's the work you should be offering to the world, right? Like we often don't think things don't count if they're easy for us, but it's like, oh, it's because you're really good at that. So you should be doing that. And it's okay that it's easy. Like that's the thing you should be doing. So I always tell people like, if it feels really easy to you, it's probably the work you should be doing. And if you limit the time and the hustle you allow yourself to put into work, you will learn very quickly that you have to use the time you have on like actual income generating activities, like selling yourself and promoting your business because if you use up those hours, agonizing over the website colors or whatever, your business will collapse. You won't get any clients. And so if you try to run your work with as little work as possible, you will find out quickly which activities are actually essential and you'll be forced to prioritize those. So I don't think it's lazy at all to try and put minimal time and energy into your business. It's just not.
Mind blown. Kamina, this concept of like turning laziness on its head and also reframing easy as not that things are coming too easily to you and in a way that they're undeserved, but what about just doing work that comes naturally? Like I
Yes.
love this concept. I'm gonna tattoo this on the inside of my eyelids.
Amazing.
I was going to use the word revolutionary. I mean, the two things that are jumping, I mean, there's a lot that's jumping out at me personally, but professionally, the idea of living a life that puts mental health first. I'm a therapist, Kamina, and that feels radical to me. It
Wow.
shouldn't. It shouldn't,
Mm,
but it does, right? And I don't know, Kamina, I hope it's okay to notice that
mm.
you're from a different continent than I am, I think.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from Australia.
Yes. Lovely, lovely. And thank you again for joining us at a very different time zone than we're at right now.
I'm so happy to.
Yes, because it's 6 a.m. where you are, right? Yeah.
It is, yeah.
And so I can't help but wonder, we live in a society that really prioritizes work, really prioritizes
Mm,
money. I also live in a part of America that's very, I think,
mm,
productivity driven in the
mm.
Northeast. And so I wonder if you get a little pushback at times from folks for prioritizing your mental health or prioritizing things other than work or productivity.
I think so, yeah. Like, I definitely think that the culture is a little different here to the States, just from what I've observed, because I have clients in the States and in Australia. But certainly, like, hustle culture is also huge here. It really is. And the idea of like hard work is a really big Australian value. And this attitude of like, nobody gets anything for free. And like, money doesn't grow on trees. And like, yeah, the idea you have to really work hard to earn your money is a big part of our culture. And people who don't work hard maybe are viewed with a little bit of suspicion, like you've got it easy, you're kind of sitting on your butt, things are coming easy to you. And so I do think I get not necessarily pushback from the people I work with, but it is hard for them to access that like permission to go, I can actually center my mental health and not my work. And I'm allowed to find a way to make enough money to not have to work super hard all the time. And I just think it is countercultural in so many cultures. And so a lot of my work is just around letting people relax into that idea that they are not lazy. And because in Australia as well, you don't want people to think that you think you're special. Like, what do you think you're special? Because you don't have to have a job like the rest of us. And so actually a lot of my work is just around getting people to feel comfortable with that and to not be bothered by it and to kind of advocate for it. I see a lot of my work when I write someone an email saying, I need you to pay me this much for that amount of work, like if I'm asked to speak or do something, I always feel I'm advocating for other people in my position to make sure that they are paid appropriately for their work, to make sure that people who are freelancers and creatives, because creatives have this story that we're not allowed to make a lot of money, that we actually are just like appropriately compensated for our work. And so I try to encourage my clients, you're not just doing it for you, you're actually doing it to shift the culture and to revolutionize the way people have to work. And I think that's something I'm really passionate about.
Kamina, this is so incredibly critical, and I'm so grateful that you said it as well, because additionally, what I'm hearing is that in the way that you operate and the communication that you have around making working this way sustainable is also being very clear about how you operate. And part of that operation is sustaining a life, and that includes compensation. And so you're acting as a role model by saying, this is how much I charge, period.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yes, yes. And especially for working in the freelance space, or I mean, even in any kind of untraditional work, especially as entrepreneurship being on the rise in, so many different countries and ways that people approach work, meaningful work at that is so important. And it can be such a vital part of how people approach their work too. And I also wanted to understand a little bit more about what you do, especially as that revenue side is such a big part of the work that you do, and how How does money play a role in creating that security and emotional safety for people doing that kind of work?
Yeah, well, I think in some ways the answer to this question is really highly individualized because it really varies depending on the person and their relationship to money and what it means for you. And so in the work I do, I will delve a lot into people's personal stories and personal baggage around money because it's so individualized. But something I think definitely applies generally, and you kind of touched on this, Caitlin, is because I work mostly with people in creative professions, so like writers, musicians, artists, theater makers, podcasters, we have kind of collectively grown up with this narrative that these are like financially unstable professions. And so we expect like financial scarcity. It's almost like a badge of honor. Like we don't ever see it modeled to us that you can have financial stability as a creative. Like the role models that we have for wealth in the arts are like pop stars and movie stars who are like, we see them like blowing it all on boats and big divorce settlements. Like it's not a model of stability always. And
For
so
sure.
like yeah, so one of the things I try to teach my students and my clients to create that stability is like, we need to unlearn this expectation that our profession doesn't pay and that if we do get money, we're bad with money. Um, and so, yeah, snap, snap, right? And so, like, one of the practical things I do to encourage people to have security and like safety and emotional peace is first to like create a large savings buffer and then expect to use it. Like, don't make yourself wrong for spending that money. You need to dip into that account on the lean months and then build the savings back up again when you have lots of work rolling in. And that is normal. That's what the money is for. You're not wrong for your bank account going up and down because like the nature of the beast for entrepreneurs and freelancers, especially early in your career or your business, is like income flow is not always consistent, and that's okay. But you can be good with money and you can learn to manage your cash so that your lifestyle can remain stable and consistent even when income is variable. So that's one really big practical thing that I encourage people to do. And then I also like try to teach this big mindset shift into like, I am a business because a lot of artists or creatives or solo entrepreneurs don't really think of themselves as like a business owner. And so I try to teach people like treat yourself like a business. I'll keep my accounts correctly. I won't be afraid of like the tax office. I'll use an accountant to make sure I'm doing everything by the book. I won't be scared of the paperwork. Like this is a skill that I can learn even if I've been told that creative people aren't good with math, right? And so I really like to try and empower my creatives around like not just being sensible with your cash, but also feeling in control of being able to generate your own work. So we're not just like going on auditions all the time or like hoping that a client will approach us to write their website or something. Like if you know how to get clients, if you know how to create quick income for yourself in return for your creative skills, you won't be reliant on somebody else. And that is a huge piece of creating emotional safety, that self-reliance, especially if you're somebody who, who has ADHD or has a chronic illness or some other reason that you feel you can't show up fully in a 9 to 5 job every day and you're scared about financial stability. Like if you can create your own money, that creates so much emotional safety, knowing you can always get more money if you need it, And I love to teach people that. And it becomes about so much more than the money. It is, like you said, it's about emotional safety. And that's like a number one value for me.
Ooh, go off, Kamina. This is so huge. Yes, this is so huge because, I'm thinking about as a singer myself, there's even within the arts, there's like a caste system. So even in the classical music world that I'm a part of, typically instrumentalists have a union, singers don't, right? So automatically, if we're sharing a rehearsal space, we're at a disadvantage, right? So like I'm not probably, I might not be getting paid. They might. They are. They have to be, right? So like there's already this different strata. So I think it's so important to recognize, to your point, that we go into every space feeling at a disadvantage, or that you get to do your art, your welcome mentality that pervades the creative arts. I think especially now that many arts organizations are struggling. Even some of the, the top five orchestras are really struggling right now. And so there's even more of this like, so you're going to volunteer for us, right? Kind of mentality. So I really
Mm,
appreciate, Kamina, that you're saying that it's okay, giving permission. It's okay to think like a business owner. I am my business.
Absolutely. And artistic work is just as valuable as other kinds of work. And I don't want to buy into that narrative that it's not. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in fact, I would say that it's the most valuable as people
Mm,
are struggling, as societies are fighting and that there's
mm,
tension and conflict. It is actually in the arts often that folks can find commonality and the ability
yes.
to connect and to look beyond difference. So I would say now more than ever, artists almost as a form of resistance, do your art, do it beautifully,
Mm,
but hold your head high.
mm.
You are empowering folks to remember that, the art itself is powerful and it's worth creating a sustainable base because it needs to be,
yeah.
we need to be able to access art.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. Thank you for saying that.
Hmm. Well, Kamina, I feel like I could talk to you for days and days. I just really want to thank you for what you're doing as an artist myself. And I'll say, as an artist who felt early on that I didn't even want to try to make it as an
Mm,
artist. I'm
Mm,
really happy to be a therapist. I feel like that's my true calling,
mm,
but I never once thought that, that being a full-time artist felt sustainable or safe enough for me to even want to give it a try. So I just appreciate the message that you're putting out there that it's okay to prioritize yourself, to engage in creativity, and to empower yourself to recognize the value of your work.
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And
Mm,
as we've mentioned in previous episodes as well, and it's especially in as I work in the creative fields as well and work with a lot of artists and writers, the thing that we keep coming back to as well is that connection with our creativity is also a connection with our principles and creates another form of burnout when we aren't connected to it. So thank you also for doing the work that you're doing and, contributing these incredibly positive messages because when we take care of ourselves, we can also take part in community. So thank you so much for being
mm.
here. And Kamina, when you're not in the break room, where can people find you?
They can find me hanging out on my website, kaminajames.com. That's Kamina, James.com. Best place to find me. I'm at Kamina James on Instagram. I have a free Facebook group where I do free coaching events every month. You can find that through my website. And if people want to work with me, I have a really priced to be affordable course. It's like $65 a month US if you do it on a payment plan. And I help people to create stable income out of their creativity in a really fantastic, amazing, supportive group environment. And I have creatives from all over the world in that group. So I'd love people to join us there. So kaminajames.com to connect with me.
Fabulous. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I loved this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. For those, because this is an audio podcast, people didn't see that I just made a face when she told us how much she charges a month. That is such an accessible rate, and I
Hmm.
appreciate that you seem to know your audience, which is really
Mm,
lovely. So anyway, that's lovely that you are thinking about that, I guess. So
mm.
yeah.
Absolutely. Business coaching should not cost $7,000 if you haven't made any money yet. So I'd like it to be accessible for those entry point
Yeah.
creatives. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm.
100%.
Caitlin, when you're not in the break room, where can we find you?
Folks can find me at CaitlinTrueHella.com, especially if you are a creative looking for ideation sessions or an entrepreneur that wants to, kick around some business ideas, see what works for you in a holistic way. Also, if you're a writer looking for editing services, I'd love to work with you on your manuscript and polish it up in a way that makes you feel confident in putting it out into the world. I can also be found Instagram and TikTok primarily, where you can also find information on the podcast. And Lyndie, when you're not in the break room, where can people find you?
You can find me at lyndielarrimore.com. You'll see more about the neurodivergent focused career coaching that I offer, um, and consulting to create resilient workplaces. And my Instagram is at Lyndie Larimore. I've posted some singing. Take a listen. Be kind, please.
Woohoo! Love
Uh,
it.
well, thank you, Kamina. I feel so rejuvenated as I'm heading into rehearsal and performance this week. I really appreciate you taking the time.
You're so welcome, and I feel rejuvenated too. So thank you both so much.
Fabulous. Well, until next time, thanks for joining the break room.
Bye.
Bye.